A force is basically an interaction between two objects, such as a push or a pull. Things hanging, sitting, balancing, moving, and spinning are all some kind of force. If you throw a frisbee, it travels in one direction. If you push a door, it opens. Some force is required for an action to occur. A force is a vector quantity as it has both magnitude and direction. So Isaac Newton was one of the greatest scientists that ever lived. While Newton was in college, he was writing ideas in his journal. Newton had ideas about the motion of objects, and it said that 3 laws describe friction. His accomplishments laid the foundations for modern science and revolutionized the world. Newton's first law states that an object will continue in its state of motion, unless acted upon an external force. If an object is at rest, then it will stay at rest. If it is moving, then it will continue to move at a constant velocity until it hits something. This concept, the tendency of an object to remain in a state of motion, is called inertia. These pumpkins will not move unless acted upon by an unbalanced force, unless acted upon by a force that is not meant to be. This golf ball would sit on the tee forever. Because of inertia, objects, including you, resist changes in their motion. When the car is going at 80 miles per hour and it's stopped by a brick wall, your body is also moving at 80 miles per hour. But why do we observe objects in motion slowing down and becoming motionless without an outside force? This isn't like what we learned about in elementary school or middle school about friction. This is about not just sliding objects against surfaces. The basic definition of friction is when forces oppose motion due to uneven surfaces. You can slightly notice this when you rub your hands against each other really fast and you get this slight tint of burnt smell. That comes plainly due to friction. We have an iPad here that is pulled across this table and it will create friction. You see, we have a hard time pulling this across the table because of the uneven surfaces between the rubber and the iPad. And this is friction. Friction is an unbalanced force that causes objects to slow down and become motionless. There are 2 categories of friction, static and kinetic. Static friction occurs when there is no relative motion between the object and the surface. Kinetic friction occurs when there is. Newton's second law defines the relationship between acceleration, force, and mass. The formula is force is equal to mass times acceleration. This equation will be used in almost all of the physics courses you will ever take. Forces are represented by vectors. They have both magnitude and direction. If different forces act upon an object at the same time, then the net force is the vector sum of all the forces. Forces are measured in newtons. Newton's law number 3 is commonly remembered as to every action having an equal but opposite reaction. Basically, anytime a force is acted upon by a different object, there is an equal force backing it up. If you pull on a rope, the rope will pull back on you. When you sit in a chair, your body exerts a downward force on the chair, and the chair exerts an upward force. A fish uses its fins to push water backwards. In turn, the water reacts by pushing the fish forwards, propelling the fish through the water. As the bird pushes down the air with its wings, the air pushes its wings up and gives it a lift. The hot gases push against the inside tube of a rocket and escape out the bottom of the tube. As the gases move downward, the rocket moves in the opposite direction. Right here, we have an iPad sitting on a table. We all know that gravity is a force that pulls it towards the center of Earth. But why is the iPhone not being pulled to the table? That is because the table also exerts a force that is equal to the force of gravity, and that's what we call normal force. Now we have a formula here that we could use to relate frictional force and a normal force. It's right here. The frictional force is equal to mu, the coefficient of friction, times the normal force. The coefficient of friction is a number that you will be given between 0 and 1 that describes how rough a surface is. If a surface is extremely rough, then it will have a higher coefficient, and if it's smoother, then it will have a lower one.